Hello, sexy souls. Alrighty. Welcome. This is Weird and Woo Woo, where we're all a little weird and we get a bit woo woo. Okay. We're gonna be tapping in for a brief message. I do want you to remember that as the sovereign being, as the sovereign being, blah, 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 of your life, I'll get it out. It's expected that you will use your discernment on if, when, how any of these messages apply. What we don't do here is we never Cinderella this to make it fit, okay? All right. Let's get trigger happy. Ooh, this message may not, I can tell already that some of y'all are like clicking off because you see the cards before you and you're like, no, I'm not listening. Peace out. Which actually just honestly plays into what this message is about and ignoring the communication and signs from spirit. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead. We're going to talk just briefly about each one of the cards. And then I'm going to give you the message. Okay. We first have victim consciousness, not to be confused with being a victim. Two different things. Some people get a little triggered by this. The idea, a notion that someone can be in a state of perpetual victimhood. Okay. So let me just decipher for you. Being a victim is one thing. That is something that you do not have control over, and there are people can be a victim of situations, circumstances, and people. All right. Victim consciousness, though, is a bit different. Victim consciousness is a state of existing and being that is within your control, that influences how you move, that can keep you in perpetual patterns, like a cycle, because it is how you perceive, maneuver, understand the world and the situations and circumstances around you and yourself within all of that, okay? It colors your perception. All right? All right. It is a mindset and a way of seeing yourself within the world. We now have also pay attention to the signs, and this is really just, it is what it is. It is the dismissing of communication from spirit. It is either like glossing over or kind of like logically dismissing any of the signs that are indicating or trying to provide information to you about people, places, things, yourself. And as a result, it prevents you from applying what you're being told to your situations and circumstances. Again, we have the owl visiting us, okay? The owl is the emblem of wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge that we have gained that is applied appropriately to situations and circumstances, right? Which is really the only way to apply something is appropriately is through discernment. Okay? And so paying attention to the signs is exactly what it sounds like. You're just ignoring them. Flat out ignoring them. And then saying what you mean is a little bit greater than just what it says. Saying what you mean is all about, yes, calling it out, addressing it, which does not necessarily mean that you are saying something to somebody else or expressing something to somebody else. A lot of times addressing it is acknowledging it to yourself and admitting it, right? It is the act of no more glossing over something, avoiding something, or logically dismissing it. And when we don't do this, because like saying what you mean is really about having the boundaries and executing those boundaries and being true to yourself rather than rejecting any or forsaking any aspect of the self or any level of your truth, right? It's about standing in your power. It's not about being confrontational, although sometimes that can be included in it. You know, sometimes that happens. But the idea of not saying what you mean, not addressing it, not acknowledging it, not calling it out, not honoring the truth. Because saying what you mean is being authentic and being truthful. It gives you a free pass at feeling like a perpetual victim, okay? So let me explain. There are signs and pieces of information that are coming through. Everything, it can be anything from all the little simple things, like the numbers that you see, the animals that present themselves in your life, all the way to red flags being presented within a person's interactions, or red flags that exist within a particular dynamic or circumstance or a particular environment. Now, reminder, red flags are different based upon the person and the situation. Okay, red flags do not necessarily mean that something is evil, vile, or wrong, or bad. It just means that within this dynamic, within this particular situation or circumstance, these are my truths. These are my boundaries. And a red flag is simply put something that says, hey, hold up, wait a minute. Wait a minute, you might want to pause. You might want to rethink this. You might want to slow down. I don't know if moving forward or continuing to indulge in is honoring you, okay? Because there's certain things where, and I use polyamorous relationships as something where, like, on a very intimate, personal life partner level, that's not something that I want. And if somebody is already in, like that is something that they engage in and that they want, it's already, like, for me, the reason I call it a red flag is not because it's bad or wrong, but because it tells me I need to stop. Well, it's time for me to pump the brakes on this one then, okay? Because to go any further would require me to forsake an aspect of myself or a desire or a boundary, and that's not okay, right? So the red flag is for me. It's for me. It means nothing necessarily about the other person. But we all have these things, because the green flag would be like, oh, keep proceeding, proceed. But anytime to ignore anything that's a red flag for me, meaning it would not be good for me, it's not what I want or desire, and to ignore that would then require me to compromise some aspect of myself. And that is the slippery slope of handing our power away, of getting into a victim consciousness of where it's always, life's unfair, bad things always happen to me. Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why can't I have what I want? Well, because you ignored the signs, okay? That type of mentality is the thinking and the thought process of somebody stuck in a victim consciousness, as if situations and circumstances were happening to you that you had zero control in. When I ignore a sign, or when I ignore, and signs can even be like, it's something that someone says. It's the way that I feel in response to something, right? It's like to ignore any of those and then to come back and be and wonder why I had to and not address it, and I've compromised an aspect of myself, and then to be like, oh, why did this happen to me? Why is it always? Well, that's not acknowledging the role that I played in there. I didn't pay attention to the signs. I didn't acknowledge, address, and call it out, and therefore now I am stuck in this perpetual state of, this always happens to me. And I'm going to be honest with you, victim consciousness actually is really great at being the justification, right, for ignoring certain signs. It's like this perpetual cycle. It stops you from moving forward by creating dramas, so to speak, right? And ignoring signs feeds the narrative of the victim consciousness, right? Like, it just helps to keep that in place. Victim consciousness will also be the excuse to perpetuate it. Meaning that it's like, well, I always lose somebody when I am authentically myself, and or when I do X, Y, and Z. And so, you know, obviously I've encountered this so many times because I ignored the signs and didn't set my boundaries, you know, that I'm gonna, it's, you know, because of that, you know, it's always going to be something. And if I constantly cut everybody out, then I will definitely not be with anything. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect love. There's no such thing as a perfect, everybody's got to compromise. It keeps you in that state, right? The only way to address this, I gotta be honest with you, is to build your internal confidence, self-worth, and courage to get out of comfort zones and work on expanding and growing in your life, okay? This is an archetype that is it's an archetype that really requires you to believe that you are powerless instead of powerful. And in that, losing your self-confidence, your self-worth, all of those things. It is not to say that other people who perpetuate lies, who inflict harm upon others and things like that, are not to be held culpable for their behaviors and what they do. But it does not absolve you of your responsibility in your life and being the co-creative, the author, right? Choosing to ignore information that's coming through. And this can even take on the aspect of spirit telling you and giving you advice and giving you guidance, and then ignoring it, right? There's so many ways in which we can perpetuate the victim consciousness and how it can play out and how it never works out for me. And you know, the other thing is, what I find sometimes is, because of our lack of willingness to, like, this can feel uncomfortable when we lack self-confidence and self-awareness to acknowledge and address and confront and to deal with things directly and head on, and to set boundaries, to reinforce our truths. You know what I'm saying? Like, that can be so uncomfortable. So sometimes we will ignore the signs so we don't have to do it. It's like, well, you know, we make exceptions. We make, you know, excuses. But again, it just feeds the victim consciousness that spawned this energy within us to begin with, right? It's a vicious cycle, guys. It's a vicious cycle. And so this is spirit saying, no more glossing over it and no more dismissing, okay, the information that you were receiving. It's time to stand in your power, and it's time to break the cycle of victim consciousness. All right, I hope this message found whoever it is meant for. Hope you all have a fantastic and wonderful day, and I will see you later.